Hello and welcome to another Xero how-to where we're going to be looking at invoice templates. So with the whole invoice template concept, actually Xero will tell you how to do it, but it won't necessarily tell you why you should do it and how to apply it to business. So that's what we're going to look at now. So I'm just going to share my screen with you guys so you can see the demo company. And I am going to go into demo company. Let me minimize this. Let me minimize my Founder window. I will come into that shortly. Yep. I'll show you how that comes into play. So we'll go into settings and we're going to go to invoice settings. And from here, we can see the various templates we have set up. So when you see this layout, this is representative of Xero's default. And this view down here is representative of docx, so basically a custom-made document.
Yeah, so they're a little more complicated to do, aren't they? But not to be afraid of, they just take a little more setup.
Yeah. Now, both have very useful applications, but both can be used in different instances. So here we've got a couple of different templates set up, but you might just have the one if you're new to Xero. So what we're going to do is look into the standard template, and we're going to select options, and we're going to go into edit. So the first thing to say here is there are a few things which people do with invoicing where they perhaps miss out on opportunities and they miss out on some of the setup opportunities which we can take advantage of. So the first one is missing out on terms and your payment advice. So this one is really, really crucial to making sure people know how to pay you. And also you can add your terms into your quotes and you can add separate terms into your invoice and statements. So really, really useful to make use of down here. Now, the other section I would recommend taking advantage of is this section where we can see draft invoice titles. So if you're issuing quotes and you're issuing invoices, and if you're doing a three-step process where in the middle you're issuing pro forma invoices, I would recommend using your draft invoice workflow and simply renaming this. Rather than being draft invoice, you can rename it pro forma invoice or order summary, something along the lines of which your customer will find useful. And actually it just confirms to the customer that this is their preemptive invoice and not a VAT invoice, which of course applies if you're VAT registered.
That's correct. And we use pro formas quite a lot if your customer insists that you issue an invoice beforehand, but you might need to change it. You might have, the pricing might not quite be agreed. Or it might just be that you don't want to commit it to your sales ledger yet. Because it's not a sale. It's like if you're in the building trade, for example, people do a default bill of materials or a demand or an application for payment. You can use those again in this pro forma invoice stage. So call it your pro forma or your application for payment or whatever you want to call it. And then you haven't quite committed it to your sales ledger yet.
It's a very handy way to get purchase invoice from a supplier as well. If the customer hasn't sent you a purchase order, you can send them a pro forma to request it, and then they've got the actual figures they need to generate the pro forma.
The other thing I would do on the side here is I would take away the payment advice cutaway. So you almost never need payment advice cutaways now. Most people pay by backs rather than by check, so you don't really need that anymore.
Yeah, if you don't want people to pay by checks, remove the option to do so. That's the simplest way to resolve that issue. So massively value adding on that one. And then as for the rest, it's basically just making sure you've got all of the relevant information included. So it's worth just having a review to make sure this is set up as you would expect. And what I'm going to do is just click save. So nice and easy to edit the default branding. Now you can actually add a new branding theme. So you can add a new standard template or you can add a custom template. Or likewise, you can simply copy a previous template and then edit it. So you might actually copy this standard template because this might be for one specific type of customer. Maybe you have multiple currency accounts and actually you want someone else to pay you in US dollars to a US dollar bank account. So you might actually copy this invoice, go in and edit it, and then simply change the terms and the payment advice so actually they can see that they need to pay you with different bank details. So it's a really useful tip on getting people to pay you in different ways. The one thing I will say is when you do actually raise an invoice, you will have a setting for branding settings within the invoice template, and you just need to change it to your various templates within here. Now, we're going to look into the docx a little bit. So, for the face of it, you can't really see much, and if you go into edit it, you don't get as much to edit. You can, of course, still change the draft invoice title, so I recommend doing this if you have done with the other one. Now, in here, as mentioned, you don't get a massive amount of functionality to change. What you instead have to do is you have to download the file as a zip file. So here's one I have downloaded earlier. So what we have over here is a new zip file. Now, if I click into the folder, I have various components, and these 5 are the ones you'll see. Now, the one thing I will say before editing any of these is, as I've done here, duplicate the file or copy it and paste it, and then rename it and give it a new naming convention.
Yeah, so version controlling is really, really important with these invoices. They are so easy to break. If you delete one of the table fields, one of the core table fields by accident, so easy to break, and then much harder to reinstate if you get it wrong.
Yeah. So basically, if you make a change, you can always revert back to the previous version. So that's the step in the process there. It just means that if you do accidentally break something, no harm done, just reset to the previous version and start again. So here's one I've started setting up earlier. So as you can see, this is the very orange invoice, and it is very orange.
Very orange, isn't it?
They are not kidding when they say that. Wow. So this is the template we
But
use.
it does show you what's what's capable in Xero, isn't it? You can have different colours, different schemes, bigger branding. You could have a branding at the top and the bottom. So some of our clients have whole invoice headers and footers that are branded to meet their particular organisation. That works really, really well. But you can't do that in the standard Xero invoice. You have to do that in this docx customized invoice template.
This is quite handy if you change systems as well. So you're invoicing from one system and to a new one, and you want the formatting slightly different to what Xero offers. Because some people just do. You want that consistency, so that's absolutely fine. Now, what you find in here is you've got these double arrows, and then of course you've got text in between, and then double arrows. So these are the merge fields which Xero has generated. Now, the one thing I will say with these is you can add more merge fields. You can take some away if you want to. Just make sure that you're keeping the critical pieces of information when reviewing these. So obviously you want all your registration details, you want the quantity, you want the customer to understand everything. So please do just check if you are removing these, just check you haven't removed something that you didn't want to remove. But as with any of these fields, you can always save this template, import it to Xero, preview it and test it, which I would recommend doing before actually ever issuing one out. Always preview your docx and then just check that you've got things as they should be.
Now, one of the areas where the docx template is easy to break is if you go into this line item description, for example, you've got a table start line item and a table end line item. Anything that has table start and table end, do not touch. Your table needs to be, or your description, your quantity, your merge fields need to be within the table start line items and table end line items. Or down below, you can see on the tax totals, you've got table end and table starts.
Yeah.
Don't mess around with any of those because they set up the core structure of the tables within the docx invoice. And if you remove one or the other, it all breaks.
Yeah. And essentially what that's saying is this is one item.
Yeah.
To a certain degree. So it expands as you need to. Now, the best part about docx is that, unlike with the standard template, you basically get given one page and then anything overspills, it just simply goes over to 2 pages. But you can't really add extra documentation to it if you need to, unless you attach it to the invoice, which we can all forget. So I'm just going to show you down here. I originally had a cut-off footer, so you can simply go into the footer and remove it, as I've done here, because I did have one which said you can pay by checks. We don't want check payments.
We don't want that now.
So I've removed that. But what I've also done is I've added another page here. So I've added my terms and conditions of sale. So you can use this to add, say, terms and conditions. You might add a supporting document of some sort. And this is your way to ensure that they 100% get it every single time. And I may actually include something, say, in the footer here, which says, please refer to our terms and conditions as highlighted on page, as highlighted on the following pages. So it's a point of reference to say, by the way, this document is not by itself. It's got extra information that you need to review. Please make sure you're done, because by accepting these quotes, accepting this invoice, you are agreeing to our terms and conditions. So it's really handy to take advantage of this. And the best part about it is if your terms and conditions are quite long, considerably compared to, say, the standard default template, you can add multiple pages, as there is no limit on this one.
Yeah, they do often run into 2 or 3 pages, don't they? And what you can do is insert a PDF image here. So if you've got your terms and conditions in PDF, you can insert those into the document. You don't have to write them all out.
Yeah. So once you've edited your file, what I will say is have a little play around with the formatting, and whenever you've done it, save it, and just make sure that you save it as the new format we've set up. So when we originally copied it, make sure you've got the version control so that you can always refer back to it. Now, if you do need to add extra fields, as with the actual merge fields, if you go to Xero help, sorry, actually I'll show you how I got here. So if you go to Xero's help center and go to the Xero central support, you can actually search, and what I would do is simply search for docx and search for merge fields or something along those lines. You'll know what we're talking about. And then all you need to do is, when it comes into customizing the docx, what we're looking for is we are looking for the one which is fields you can insert into a custom template. And you can see from here the various merge fields you can use. So you can, if you accidentally remove one, this is how you'd add it back in. And likewise, if you wanted to add another one that's not there, this is also how you would add it in. So imagine I've saved my docx and I've imported it. I would make sure I've actually uploaded it into here, so I've got my format in here. And then, like I said, whenever you've set up any invoice settings, please do go to your invoices, and just any old invoice will do, and have a look at how it's actually being presented. So at the moment, I can change my branding across my various formatting. And of course, I can preview these as well. So please do check they are looking how you would like them to. And this is how you would see if, of course, your very orange invoice, which you've been playing around with, is doing the job as you would expect.
Well, there's two types of preview, isn't there? So there's previewing what it looks like in an electronic email. So that's the overview. There's also previewing how it looks on the document itself. So if you go into the print PDF, that's how to view how it looks exactly as it would be produced as a PDF document. So it's a slightly different view of how it would be produced if you did the preview.
Yeah. And the best part about this is if you have been playing around with docx and you're not entirely sure if it's going to work, you'll know very quickly from here, and then you can just revert back to the previous version if anything's gone wrong.
And this also, you can see from here, Hoyt Productions, the address is not picking up. So go and check, for example, whether the address is missing and you haven't put it in the system, or whether it's the merge field that's broken and it's not bringing in the correct details.
Yeah, and I always say, as Lisa mentioned, check Xero first, then check the docx. It's easier to check what's in Xero first as a point of call. So lovely. That's our invoices. So please do have a look at the invoice templates and apply these in business, because actually they make a massive difference. And you might need more than one template. Just remember that you can only set one default template. So if you do ever need to change the branding theme, just remember, if you're changing customers and you're changing invoice templates and invoice branding, you do need to change the default if you're changing between customers. So just a point to remember. Hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, please do let us know. And if you did like this video, please do let us know in the comments. Take care, guys. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.